Pokemon Diamond and Pearl were some of the first video games I ever owned. So to pay homage to these games and their starter Pokemon that have meant so much to me, I decided to take on the region with a bit of a twist. This is my journey of shiny hunting the Sinnoh starters and seeing if they can beat the entire game of Brilliant Diamond by themselves. At the beginning of 2025, I created a shiny bingo card with 9 target shinies for the upcoming year. And in the bottom right corner of that, you'll see the Sinnoh starters: Turtwig, Chimchar, and Piplup. These 3 little guys played a huge role in my childhood as I spent hundreds of hours exploring the Sinnoh region in Pokemon Pearl as the first game that I ever got after receiving a Nintendo DS for Christmas. I can still remember going to Target to pick out that game with my mom and my brother back in the day. That's all to say that these Pokemon have a huge place in my heart. So finally shiny hunting them after almost 20 years of nostalgia and memories felt like a perfect combination of all of my childhood time spent playing Diamond and Pearl and all the time I've spent shiny hunting since rediscovering my love for the Pokemon franchise after I picked up Pokemon Sword and Shield during COVID. And now that we can hunt them with far more favorable odds than the 1 in 8192 odds in the original Diamond and Pearl, or even the 1 in 4096 odds in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, Pokemon Legends Arceus felt like the perfect place to kick off this challenge. And in addition to the great odds that you can get in Outbreaks, I have the Shiny Charm in that game, so these hunts will go by really fast, right? But as I started working on these shiny hunts, I thought about how the end of this challenge would go. And while I was thrilled by the prospect of having this shiny starter trio to show off, I knew that in reality, these 3 Pokemon would probably just end up sitting in a random box in that game, rarely mentioned or ever seen again, as almost all of my shiny Pokemon end up that way. But hey, I'll be damned if I spend $2.99 a month on Pokemon Home just so I can see my shinies show up on my phone. Instead of just leaving these Pokemon in a box forever, I wanted to memorialize these 3 Pokemon and what they really meant to me, so I decided that I needed to do something more and started scheming up a plan. Normally, the Pokemon games emphasize choosing one of your starters and then going through the entire game with them, building a bond with them as time goes on, and you just leave the other 2 to maybe your rivals or even just the professor in the lab once you take your Pokemon. And I thought, instead of singling one starter out, I wanted to be able to share this journey with all 3 of those shiny Pokemon as an homage to all they have meant to me throughout my life and helping me discover my love of both Pokemon and gaming in general. I decided that once I caught these 3 shinies, I would transfer them over to BDSP to see if I couldn't take them on one last run through the Sinnoh region and become the champion. But as an extra twist, I wanted to keep them in their original forms, so I was going to beat the entire game without ever evolving my starters. The problem is, I still have to find them first. So I decided to boot up Pokemon Legends Arceus and get started. While each of these 3 starters have a few guaranteed overworld spawns in different areas, with Chimchar in the Fieldlands, Turtwig in the Mirelands, and Piplup in the Coastlands, the areas they spawn in are pretty far out of the way and are not convenient at all to reset or recheck. So I knew that I was going to rely pretty heavily on the massive mass outbreaks that would guarantee anywhere from 6 to 10 Pokemon that I was looking for, while also bringing my shiny odds from 1 in 819 all the way down to roughly 1 in 216, because before this I had taken the time to perfect these 3 entries, so you can understand how utilizing these massive mass outbreaks seemed like a no-brainer. And before anyone comes in here and says, wow, I can't believe you didn't hunt for these starters in BDSP, I have a couple things to say to that. 1, don't get me wrong, I hate myself as much as everybody else, but not so much that I'm going to spend months of my life just resetting, looking at a briefcase. That sounds like it sucks. 2, even if I did all of that, I would just have to reset, find a shiny, transfer it to a new save file, reset the old save file, and then do it all over again until I had caught all 3 of these shinies, which sounded like way more effort than I needed to put in. And 3, I wanted this challenge to be mostly enjoyable and leave me with fond memories of these games, not painful ones. And for all those reasons and more, we are still taking this on in Pokemon Legends Arceus. Throughout the entire first day of this challenge, I spent most of my time running in and out of areas to keep checking for different massive mass outbreaks. And I will say, the starter massive mass outbreaks are far less common than I remember them being. That said, I would find an outbreak here or there, and for day 1 of the challenge, I was mostly focused on finding my favorite starter, Piplup. But to round things out and give myself some options, I decided to also look for what I thought was the best looking shiny out of these 3, Turtwig. So day 1 of this challenge was a lot of Mirelands and Coastlands gameplay, but I was coming up pretty empty on this first day of the stream, and I was now a little worried that I was in for a lot more of a grind than I was initially expecting. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I did have hopes to find like 1 starter per stream to just keep this challenge moving along, considering after all of it, I have to beat the entirety of Brilliant Diamond with these 3 starters unevolved. So on a whim, I decided to take a break from looking for those 2 to spin a lap of the Fieldlands looking for Chimchar. And the game rewarded me for switching up my routine with not 1, but 2 different Chimchar outbreaks. All right, certainly there's a chimchar in this outbreak. Surely. Also, this is huge. This had me feeling pretty good about my prospects of grabbing the first shiny of this challenge, and I'll be honest, the game didn't even make me work that hard for it. Let's go, dude. Let's go. There's one. There's one. Let's go, chat. Yes. There he is. There he is. All right, hold on. We're going in loud. We're going in loud. Okay. Shiny Chimchar caught. With one shiny monkey added to the team, it was time to keep searching for the other two starters. It was around this point that I developed the tactic of just entering the Mirelands and flying over to the one area where Turtwig spawns if there weren't any outbreaks I was looking for. I landed on this strategy because it was the only starter that spawned anywhere near any of the camps or spawn points, so it took way less time to check this than going anywhere else on the map. After finding the Chimchar, I spent about 30 more minutes looking around for anything else, but came up completely empty, but I was happy to walk away with one of the 3 shiny starters on our team after just one stream. Still though, we got 2 more guys to track down. The next time I went live, I was back at it with the same tactics, spending a ton of my day in the Crimson Mirelands, and while every single one of my Turtwig trips ended up empty in terms of actually finding the shiny starter, I managed to find a lot of other things along the way. And I'm hoping in all of my time flying over Yanma that will actually just, why don't I just perfect Yanma? Like, this would give me something to do, honestly. I do momentarily forget how beautiful the music is. There's no way, dude. I should perfect this. I keep flying over it. The next time we find a shiny Yanma, this theme has to go crazy. Let's go. It's not the shiny I'm looking for, but it's another one. Let's go. Unfortunately, though, that was all that showed up in that stream, so I just had to end and come back to it another day, actually looking for some shiny starters again. The next day, I came back refreshed and eager to check off another shiny starter on this list. While things got off to a slow start with only a few outbreaks having starters in them, the game was willing to reward me for my patience today. Just not how I had initially hoped. But I need to find someone to replace our gold. Dude, don't. Oh my god, it was Parasect, chat. I thought it was Alpha Turtwig. It's Parasect. No. This was probably one of the worst shiny fakeouts I have ever experienced, as I truly thought that I had found Turtwig, especially after I had spent a good chunk of the beginning of the stream talking about how I thought this was the one shiny we'd find outside of an outbreak. But alas, I grabbed this stupid mushroom and kept moving. The next couple hours of stream were pretty quiet, with nothing shining at all and just a few more starter outbreaks yielding nothing. But finally, now 2 hours into the stream and probably about 6 hours in total, I was finally gifted the next shiny that I was looking for. Oh, let's go. Let's go, dude. Let's go. Let's go, dude. That is so sick. That is so sick. Let's go, shiny Piplup. Let's go. Oh my goodness, it shines finally. I was absolutely thrilled to find this, as Piplup is one of my favorite Pokemon ever, and seeing it shine was just a very special moment to me. I quickly added this one to the team, and with some newfound energy, I buckled down to see if I couldn't use this momentum to find a shiny Turtwig and just close out this first part of the challenge. It was another couple hours before I saw anything else, but this encounter was one of the craziest things I've ever experienced in all of my time shiny hunting. Nope, I'm out. Catch y'all later. Dude, that's so crazy. That's so dumb. After all of that, after everything, I pull up and I find a shiny Grottle, dude. I swear. This beef is for real now. Well, we found a shiny Grottle. Not what I had in mind. Not what I came here for. Well, I guess that's what I get for checking the Grottle outbreak. I feel like more Grottle have spawned in this outbreak than any Turtwig outbreak. No way another one shined. No way, dude. This is busted as hell. That is not funny. That is not funny. That is not real. No shot. No shot. Somehow I was so close, yet so far to finding this Turtwig, but I was certain that finding back-to-back shiny Grottle was a very good omen for the next stream. And finally, in the next one, after almost 12 hours of total shiny hunting, I found shiny Turtwig. And it ran away. No, 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 no. Luckily, I've been in this situation several times before, and I actually learned how important it is you save when you see a shiny Pokemon in this game. So I was able to reset my save file, go encounter the Turtwig again, and have it run away a second time. But as they say, the third time's the charm. I swooped in, caught this Turtwig, and finally I had caught all 3 shiny Sinnoh starters and was ready to move on to the next step of this challenge, taking on Brilliant Diamond with a team of shiny starters. While I was eager to get right into the next part of this challenge, I still had to do a little bit of setup first. I had to boot up a fresh save file and get through the normal beginning of the game activities, which included grabbing my own non-shiny Turtwig for the first couple of battles in the game. While this was a little less hype than using my team of shiny Pokemon, they were all coming over in the mid-teens, so it didn't really feel like there was a question as to whether my over-leveled starters stood a chance in the first rival battle, so I was okay with this. I breezed through Jubilife and Route 203 before landing in Orberg, and that felt like the right place to truly kick off this challenge. So in the Orberg Pokemon Center, I deposited my non-shiny Turtwig so he could retire at the ripe age of level 10. Yeah, oh, look at regular Turtwig. Yuck! Ugh! Disgusting. Cool Turtwig. Boo! Yeah, let's go! Boo! Yeah, let's go! And brought over my new team of fully shiny starters. And I can't even lie, rolling up to Rourke with a shiny Piplup, shiny Turtwig, and shiny Chimchar is probably both the coolest and most overpowered I have ever felt entering a Pokemon gym in any game. And I don't really have a better place to mention this, but I somehow feared that this challenge would be too easy, and I decided to never use in-battle items, meaning I can't heal or spam X items in any battle. That said, held items are still allowed and will be used heavily throughout this challenge. Despite all that, I can't ignore what happened right before this. In the trainer battle right before Rourke, something really bad happened. My Piplup disobeyed me. Looking good for our team for this first gym. Oh. And that. Oh, shit. These Pokemon may not actually obey me, which will make this far more interesting for at least the first battle or two, or the next 4 gyms. Luckily, I was able to get through the Rourke battle no problem, but to understand the struggle that I've had with disobedience in these Pokemon games, we're gonna have to go back a little ways. Ever since Generation 1, Pokemon that are not native to your game's trainer ID require that you have a certain amount of gym badges in order for them to obey you. And that's why you'll see the text, all Pokemon up to level 30 or 50 will obey you after every few gym leaders in almost every single Pokemon game. The thing is, this only applies to Pokemon that weren't originally caught on the same save file as your game, which is why 99% of the time you can totally ignore these gym leaders warnings and it has no real impact on your gameplay at all. It's to the point where I almost forget this feature even exists because I rarely run into it. So with all of that in mind, I walked out of the gym with my over-leveled shiny team by my side and Cobble badge in hand, a little nervous, but still happy to see these Pokemon in action. Unfortunately for me and my team, that was the last easy gym battle for a while. Well, there was now this voice in the back of my mind screaming that this run would be impossible due to disobedience. I wanted to see how bad it could really be moving forward. Dude, I didn't even know it could do that. With so many mechanics in these games getting changed over time, I figured there was a chance that the disobedience mechanics had also been changed and maybe they weren't really as bad as I remembered them. All right, neither of my Pokemon attacked. This is good. This is good. I pushed on through Route 205 and into Floroma Town to take on our first bit of the Galactic storyline. And while my Pokemon would miss a move here and there, they were still pretty over-leveled. So when they did connect, it hit hard enough to just make up for missing a few moves before that. But it felt like at the time, my Pokemon were still pretty good at using their intended moves, and missing wasn't causing that much of a problem. I got through the couple of Galactic Grunt battles before taking on what is usually the first real hurdle in any Gen 4 run, which is the Commander Mars battle at the Valley Windworks. Once she swapped out of her Zubat, you can see the beginning of my misfortunes against her Purugly, as Turtwig missed 4 straight moves and was knocked out without landing a single hit against her team. But as if to balance out the battle immediately after, Chimchar went on a pretty insane run, hitting 4 straight power-up punches to knock out Purugly, and then immediately one-shotting Zubat to get us out of the battle with a win. And this was by no means the least stressful fight I've had against Commander Mars, but I still got out of there on my first try, and I was pretty thankful for that. Once I was done in the Valley Windworks, I became focused on getting to the second gym as fast as possible so my Pokemon would start listening to me again. Walking into the Eterna Forest, I felt a little better knowing that I would have Cheryl healing my team after every battle, and Chansey could just sit there and take damage while I tried to wrangle my team of misbehaving starter Pokemon. But it turns out Cheryl might actually need our help getting through there, as her Chansey is an absolute hazard on the battlefield, and she brings 0 other Pokemon to help out. So naturally, I immediately lost my first battle because my Pokemon refused to do almost anything at all, and this was really starting to plant the seeds of doubt in my mind as to whether we could get this challenge done. If I was struggling to get through trainer battles in the forest, how in the world was I going to defeat Champion Cynthia and her Garchomp? But I decided that I would worry about that much later in the run, and luckily the next time around through the forest was a little bit kinder to me, and I made it through to the other side and into Eterna City. Now, only 4 gym trainers and the leader stood between myself and being freed from this hell of constantly missing moves. For now. Luckily for me though, the gym trainers weren't all that bad, and though I did have to rely on some of the luckiest circumstances possible to even beat the first one, I got through the rest of the gym. Wait, it's throwing? Oh, is it out of Mega Drains? Hold on. No way. No way, it can't hit me. It can't hit me. Let's go, dude. Let's go. And soon enough, it was time to face Gardenia. Chimchar was able to land some Flame Wheels to take out her Cherubi and Turtwig, which I will point out is not shiny. But I decided to toss my own Turtwig and Piplup out against her Roserade. I really just wanted to get any damage possible I could against her Ace, seeing as how Chimchar was below half health and probably wouldn't live more than a hit or two. Turtwig got in a couple of good bites before getting knocked out, and unfortunately, Piplup just got one shot, leaving it all down to Chimchar. I thought for sure Roserade's Petal Blizzard would knock me out, but somehow Chimchar lived, and all I needed was Chimchar to hit one move to seal our victory. Oh, let's go. All right. Chimchar's got a flair for the dramatic. Against all odds, this disobedient team had made it through the second gym and was finally back under my control. Until they hit level 30. And if you know anything about the gym leaders and their level curves in this game, you might know that this could end up being a problem. But for now, I was just so happy that I could keep progressing through the game and know that when I clicked on a move in battle, it would actually happen. Once you make it through the second gym battle, you are immediately sprung into another section of Team Plasma battles at the top of the city. This time around, these battles were so much easier, and I was able to cruise through the hideout and take out Commander Jupiter and rescue the bike shop owner. With all of that taken care of, it was time to begin our very long trek across like half of the Sinnoh region. And while this would normally be a great opportunity to level up our team, I was desperately trying to dodge every trainer in sight to stay underleveled. I made it through Mount Coronet and over to Hearthome City for a brief stop to see our mom and fight our rival again. While his team is starting to get a little more well-rounded, I was able to get through this battle on the first try, which was a huge relief. Unfortunately though, the rival battles are not going to be nearly as easy as this in the future. But we'll cover that later. From here, I kept on my journey going until I got to Route 215. And this is where things get a little bit tough because it features a couple of mandatory battles on this route. The first one isn't so bad, but the last one, which is a double battle against 2 ace trainers, is way worse. With a Gyarados that also has the benefit of rain on this route, this battle is already tough with normal playthroughs. So adding to that the fact that I only had 3 shiny starter Pokemon that were unevolved made this wildly more difficult. And that immediately showed as the first time around I got destroyed and sent back to Salacian Town.
Luckily for me though, I remembered on the way back that you can actually just fight these ace trainers one at a time, which makes this battle way easier. The Gyarados was still very tough to knock out as I had 0 moves that even registered as being effective, but with the combined power of all 3 of my Pokemon, I was able to get it done and move past this trainer and into Veilstone City, home of the 3rd gym and our next real challenge. This gym requires a few trainer battles to get all the way to Maylene, and by the time I got there, my whole team was between level 27 and 28. While this was good, I was still a little concerned for 2 reasons. One, Maylene's ace is a level 30 Lucario who is leagues ahead of all of my Pokemon statistically, so it can outspeed and outgun everything on my team. The other problem was that I had to make it through this battle, all the way to Pastoria City, through the whole gym, and beat Crasher Wake without my team going over level 30. I say all of that to point out this was going to be very tough. But on the bright side of things, being in Veilstone City means we also have access to one of the biggest tools in this entire run, the Veilstone department store. While the department store wasn't nearly as good in past generations, in Gen 8, the sheer amount of items you can buy here is incredible. They have vitamins to help with boosting my team's EVs later on, but perhaps the biggest thing is on the next floor up. TMs. There is such an insane array of different moves you can buy here, including a ton of setup moves that will be wildly helpful to this run. So I spent some time in here scheming up different strategies and trying to anticipate what moves I want now and in the future. And after a bit of a shopping spree, I was ready to take my first run at the gym. But right away, I ran into a problem. While I was trying to set up my own Turtwig with growth, I noticed that Maylene's Meditite had plenty of setup moves of its own. With the moveset of Light Screen, Flash, Bulk Up, and Drain Punch, Meditite could be an actual problem in this battle. Every turn that I spent setting up my own Pokemon, Maylene could do the same, meaning her Pokemon would be just as dangerous as mine as time went on. And while I was able to knock out her Meditite, her Machoke was another huge threat that could just almost one-shot my entire team. This made me extremely nervous because I was already struggling with this gym battle, and I haven't even run into her Lucario yet. I tried a few times with a mix of strategies and wasn't able to get much going, so I took a little time to go back and fight the rest of the trainers in this gym for the little additional experience. But by this point, my Pokemon were teetering dangerously close to level 30, which I was hoping to avoid unless I really needed the extra power. But even with higher levels, it became clear to me that I would have to rely on strategy. Extremely cheesy strategy at that, but strategy rather than power to make it past Maylene. To save you a lot of time, I spent hours trying and failing at this battle. And through all of that, I had adapted my strategy a bit to using Chimchar as a sweeper, setting up with Sword Stance in the hopes that when it would outspeed Maylene's Pokemon, it would deliver crushing blows. This was working better than my previous Turtwig strategy, but oftentimes I was still taking way too much damage in the beginning of this battle, so I would easily get knocked out by either Machoke or Lucario if they landed a single hit. This led to me starting the battle with Leech Seed from Turtwig, so my Chimchar, when it switched in, would constantly heal every single turn. And finally, after a few hours worth of attempts, I got the run I was looking for. My Chimchar was fully set up, and I had knocked out both Meditite and Machoke, with my Chimchar still with most of its health. And I just needed one more hit to knock out Lucario and free myself from this terrible gym. Lucario struck first, and Chimchar somehow lived on 1 HP, and it was time for Chimchar to return the favor to Lucario. Oh, he lives on 1! Come on, Chimchar! No, dude! And Chimchar missed. It just straight up missed its move. So instead of finally breaking out of the gym, I was sent right back to the beginning again, cursed to keep running this until something worked. And that took another several hours. At this point, I was pretty committed to just winning the gym battle with my current team and strategy, as I knew they were good enough. It was just going to be a matter of getting lucky with the right run. So I kept running it back and resetting until everything finally fell into place. Hours later, I managed to get another run with Chimchar properly set up and got back to Lucario. And this time, Chimchar didn't mess around. Lucario was crushed by a single Flame Wheel, and I could finally claim my 3rd gym badge. Just live. Okay, I think this means we got it. We live on 4 HP. Flame Wheel plus 6. Oh my god, finally. Holy shit. Oh my god. Okay, everybody's over leveled. This is going to be scuffed as hell. It does not matter. It does not matter. Well, this was a huge relief, and I was glad to finally be stuck on something else for a while. The lack of a level cap boost was going to be a huge hurdle. With the 4th gym being a water type gym, I decided to go for a drastic strategy and throw Turtwig in the PC for a while to prevent it from gaining any more experience. And we are going to struggle through the point of now until fighting Crasher Wake with my 2 Pokemon that will not obey me. And by doing this, I decided to sacrifice my Chimchar and Piplup to the disobedience gods, knowing that the way forward would be paved with missed moves, but it felt like it was the best thing I could do to give myself my best possible chances at an easier 4th gym. And right away, things were really tough as I lost the very first trainer battle once I left Veilstone City. Again, dude, don't Quick Claw just to pretend not to notice. Don't do it again. Dude, stop. But eventually I made my way down to Pastoria and headed into the 4th gym. To be completely honest, I'm not really sure what I expected trying to fight a full gym of water type Pokemon with a Chimchar and a Piplup, but it's safe to say it was tough getting through here. Even trainers with just a Wingull were a struggle to take out, and between my lack of effective moves and the fact that both of my Pokemon were now well over level 30 and missing moves again, I had to refight more trainers in this gym than I would really care to admit. Finally though, I was down to the final trainer in the gym. Little did I know though, this trainer had the most terrifying Pokemon yet. Something so evil and so powerful, it would take all of my Pokemon knowledge to figure out how to defeat it. It's Shellos. It's just a Shellos. That was it. It was just Shellos. Yeah, that's right. I kept losing to a Shellos. What does it matter to you? Shellos' Storm Drain ability meant that my Piplup's already weak Bubble Beam was now entirely useless, and Chimcharges couldn't deal any amount of substantial damage to knock this thing out. And I ended up losing this battle so many times that I got so mad I grabbed Turtwig back out of retirement to beat this one battle. And I didn't realize this at the time, but this one frustrated move would actually have huge negative repercussions down the line. For now though, I was just glad to have Shellos off my screen and finally be standing face to face with Crasher Wake, ready to fight for my 4th gym badge. And if you thought the 3rd gym was tough and required a bit of a cheesy strategy, oh boy, are you in for a treat with this one. I don't want to give anything away, but just take a look down at the bottom of the screen. Look at how far we are through the chapter of this video. Yeah, this one was pretty bad.
I'll start by saying that in total, Crasher Wake's gym took me around 6 hours to complete. And that includes multiple streams where I just spent the entire time only battling the gym leader and doing nothing else. So you can only imagine the thread my sanity was hanging on by at the end of this saga. But as with all good stories, we'll need to go back to the beginning of it to fully understand the scope of what's going on. Rolling up to Crasher Wake, I thought I was a genius for setting aside my Turtwig to keep it underleveled and assumed that my super effective moves would be more than enough to cruise on through and on to the next gym. I could not have been more wrong.
Man, I did not think about this challenge at all when I started it.
Coincidentally, when it came to Wake's first Pokemon, Gyarados, I actually had the opposite problem of Maylene. Instead of having almost all setup moves like Meditite, Gyarados only had attacking moves. And while it actually ended up being to my benefit in the long run, it meant that every single turn I would be losing some or most of my precious HP, punishing me for taking my time to set up my Pokemon appropriately for the rest of the battle, which conveniently was the only way I was ever going to win this battle. And honestly, this battle was a challenge unlike anything I had faced before playing Pokemon. I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but Crasher Wake's team is made up of all fully evolved Pokemon who are faster, stronger, and better prepared than my team. And to make matters worse on top of that, only Turtwig obeys me, meaning 2 of my 3 Pokemon are almost useless. It was very clear that even after one attempt, beating this gym was going to take an insane combination of luck and absolutely wild tactics. So I got to work trying to figure out the best course of action. And for the last 30 minutes of one stream, I tried just about anything I could to make progress in this gym to absolutely no avail. Out of all the runs in this stream, I barely managed to get past Gyarados once. And even then, I was met with the next piece of devastating news. Crasher Wake's Quagsire has Haze. And for those unfamiliar, Haze eliminates all stat changes, meaning the +6 evasiveness I had been working so hard to set up against Gyarados was instantly wiped off the board, making Turtwig super vulnerable to attacks again. So even if I got that far, I now had to make it past Quagsire and Floatzel if I wanted to beat this gym. It was only a short stint, but in the wake of the 3rd gym, I was worried that this is where the challenge would truly meet its end. But in the meantime, I had a couple of days off to think about things before returning to this battle. Some time away from this challenge didn't necessarily give me any bright ideas about how to beat this battle, but it did reset my sanity meter, which was nearing its limits by the end of the last stream.
how much does this do? Not that much. Okay. Oh, come on.
And that did not remain the case for very long. This stream was 3 hours long, and I swear to you, I lost this battle in every possible way and witnessed things I didn't even know could happen in Pokemon. At this point, my rudimentary strategy was to just send out Chimchar first and try to get a stealth rock up. That part wasn't super vital, but I figured it wouldn't hurt, as it also did the job of getting Gyarados' Intimidate ability to activate. Once Chimchar was knocked out, I would swap into Piplup and set up a few charms before it got knocked out, leaving the rest of the work for Turtwig. And while this strategy sounds at least moderately thought out, all of it hinged on Chimchar and Piplup obeying me for any amount of turns, which was usually not the case. At a certain point, I just started resetting if I didn't get at least 1 or 2 charms off before Turtwig came out, because without it, it would just get knocked out too fast. And in the cases where all of that did work out, I would go into Turtwig and begin setting up Reflect, Leech Seed, and Double Team, all while hoping Gyarados wouldn't critical hit, flinch, or freeze my Turtwig on any given turn.
What a perfect world that would be if in the one turn I wasn't substituted, I didn't get flinched, I didn't get frozen, I didn't get any of that.
Why? Why do I ever say anything? Why do I open my mouth, chat? Why does any idea go through my head and I'm like, yeah, I should say, you know what? I should say that out loud. I should say that. I should say what I'm thinking. Why do I ever think that? And assuming all of that panned out, I would face up against Quagsire, which would almost instantly use Haze, resetting my stats and wiping out all of my hard work. Well, Quagsire was actually not the worst to knock out. With Scald, it could burn me, and even if I made it past, I had a Float Soul that could outspeed me and almost guaranteed one-shot me waiting on the other side of it all. I was so desperate for any advantage in this battle that I also took the time in the middle of the stream to go rematch the old couple on Route 212 to get some money for vitamins to further boost my Turtwig stats. But no matter how many times I reset, boosted my stats, or changed my strategy, I just couldn't get it done. And after 3 straight hours of losing over and over, I ended stream, thinking to myself that if I couldn't get past this in the next stream, it might be time to call it quits on this whole challenge. I came back after another couple days off with a new scheme in hand, and I felt like today was going to be the day. And just as I suspected, many hours later and well past the point of my sanity, the magical run finally came together. I got off a couple of charms with Piplup, and I got a perfect setup with +6 evasiveness on my Turtwig. From there, I was able to Leech Seed and Mega Drain my way through all of Gyarados' health. And after that, I lucked out and managed to get a first hit on Quagsire twice in a row without it using Haze, which was huge. And finally, it was just between Turtwig and Floatzel. I managed to dodge a critical Ice Fang and get my Reflect up just in time to tank another one, all while slowly knocking out Floatzel with Mega Drain.
God, please just let me win this battle. Oh, thank God. Oh my God, we did it. Oh my God. Oh, let's go, dude. I was waiting for that freeze for so long. Oh my God, we're free. We're free, chat.
And finally, after so many hours and resets, we can talk about the next part of this journey. After the entire Crash or Wake saga, my Pokemon would now listen to me up to level 50. And I was hopeful that this is the point in the game where I would no longer have to worry about overleveling. And as a reward for beating the gym, we are immediately thrust into another battle with our rival as we leave Pastoria City. Luckily, with my Pokemon back on my side again, this battle was a breeze and I was able to keep moving on. From here, I flew back to Salacian Town and finally helped the poor Psyduck that have been hungover for weeks up on Route 210. And once I got through the fog, I was in Celestic Town for our next bit of story. I had a few battles along the way, but with my Pokemon listening again, it was really no concern at all, which made me super hopeful for the upcoming gym battles. Once I was in Celestic Town, I got through the quick battle with the Team Galactic Grunt before chatting with Cynthia's grandma and Cyrus. And just like that, we were back in Hearthome City to take on our next gym battle already. While I felt a bit better knowing I had much more of a level cap to play with, Fantina's team is still no joke and is often a tough part of most Diamond and Pearl playthroughs. I chose to rely on my first grade math skills to avoid battling any trainers in an effort to keep my Pokemon as low level as I could, and saving those trainer battles as a fallback plan if I really needed the XP. That said, the first go at this battle didn't do a whole lot to boost my confidence. I was able to start setting up against Driftbloom a bit, but her Gengar was just too fast and too strong for the rest of my team, and I lost pretty quickly after that. So I did the only logical thing to do after losing a gym battle one time. I went to the Veilstone department store to cook up the most devious battle strategy I could think of. And for this battle, it involved using Substitute, Double Team, and Sword Stance. After a back and forth of setup moves, Chimchar was up to +6 evasiveness, +6 attack, and full health, ready to take on Fantina's team. Chimchar managed to dodge Gengar's Sludge Bomb and then hit a huge Flame Wheel to one-shot it. So it was down to just Miss Magius versus Chimchar. I got outsped and thought it might be over when Miss Magius used Phantom Force, but Chimchar proved it was just too slippery, dodging that move and delivering another knockout hit. And just like that, I went from taking days to beat the Pastoria City Gym to beating the Hearthome City Gym in 2 attempts. And best of all, my Pokemon were still only in their mid to high 30s, meaning there was plenty of time before we hit the level 50 cap, meaning I should be all right getting through the 6th gym as well. With Byron's Steel-type team, it was the first time in a while that my entire lineup would be pretty viable, but that didn't mean getting there would be just as easy. After collecting the 5th gym badge, I got back to Jubilife and used my newly unlocked Surf ability to make my way over to Canalave City, home of the next gym. But there were still a few more things that needed taken care of before I could go after my next gym badge. While crossing the bridge in Canalave City, I was stopped by my rival for yet another battle before I could continue. And unfortunately for me, this is the first time that my rival having a bigger and more diverse team is actually a problem. I thought I would just breeze through this battle because I was on a pretty good roll this stream, but his Heracross made itself known that it was not going to be easy. With Aerial Ace and Brick Break, it was able to hit my team pretty hard and also just prevent me from setting up Reflect, which had been so helpful for all the incoming damage. I was stuck at this battle for a solid 45 minutes, just trying over and over until I finally got an attempt where my rival's team just used a few too many setup moves, giving my team just enough time to set up and deliver the proper knockouts to Heracross and then Monferno to finish this battle off. And with that, I finished crossing the bridge and headed to our next stop, Iron Island. Here I had to take on a couple of Team Galactic battles and also help Riley make his way across one singular floor of the island. During that time, I took on a couple of double battles with some ace trainers and found out why Riley needed so much help getting to the other side of the island. He only has Lucario. That's it. So again, I was stuck in a 1v2 once his Lucario was knocked out, and this led to me actually losing a battle and having to run it all the way back. Luckily, this time around, I was actually ready for this battle, and admittedly, I didn't use Surf as much, and I was able to carry us through the battle and through the rest of Iron Island. He gave me an egg that will never hatch because it won't be shiny, and I was back to Canalave City for a 3rd time, but finally able to take on the gym. And as you might expect, getting through this gym was really easy, as all 3 of my Pokemon were pretty well suited to take on the combination of rock, ground, and steel type Pokemon we ran into along the way. The one drawback is that there are very few skippable trainers in this gym, and while the levels would certainly make beating Byron easier, I was a little worried that I wouldn't have as much flexibility if it turned out that Byron was much more difficult than I initially anticipated. Right when we got into the battle though, it was very clear that my fear of a difficult Byron battle was unfounded. Turtwig was able to set up Leech Seed and Reflect and just slowly wear down Byron's Bronzer and Steelix, with Turtwig tanking hit after hit to outlast both of them. And with its final move, it managed to set up Leech Seed again with a Quick Claw before getting knocked out by Bastiodon. All it took was Piplup using Surf twice, and for the first time since my battle with Gardenia weeks ago, I had beat a gym on my very first try. And to make things even better, my Pokemon now obeyed me up to level 70, giving me an enormous 30 level safety net between now and beating the 8th gym, which I felt would be more than enough for me to get through the end of the story in the final 2 gyms in this game. Following the absolutely monumental progress I made in the last stream, I was excited to get back to this challenge and see if I couldn't continue on the same trajectory. I started out by taking on another chunk of the Team Galactic story that involves going from lake to clear out all the grunts and commanders and rescue Don and Professor Rowan. From there, I get told to go to the 3rd lake by Snow Point City, meaning it's time to start the very long trek up to the northernmost point of the map. On my way there, I realized I completely forgot to stop and get the HM for strength, so after a short pit stop in the Lost Tower, I was on my way through Mount Cornet and trudging through the snow on Route 216. After a very long hike, accompanied by one of the best route themes in existence, I was up where I needed to be in Snow Point City. And with all the running around, by the time I actually got there, I only had a little bit of my stream left, so I decided to just take on the gym once to get a feel for what I was up against. And to this day, I still have not figured out a good way way to actually get through the gym puzzle, so after a lot more time there than I would like to admit, I was at Candace and ready for the 7th gym battle. To no surprise, I obliterated her Snover with a single flame wheel, and then I tried taking some time to set up against her Sneasel, hoping that I could get my Chimchar squared away to sweep the rest of the gym. And while that was actually pretty successful in getting off a few charms and a Reflect Leech Seed combo to weaken it, Sneasel has Hone Claws, which allows it to boost both its attack and its accuracy. The two things I wanted to be as low as possible. So after a bit less setup than I would have liked to, I took the risk and knocked out Sneasel. But with Chimchar only at +3 attack and evasiveness, I wasn't really convinced this would be enough. And immediately I was proven right as Medicham one-shotted me with a Rock Slide, and then it made quick work of Turtwig with a single Ice Punch. While there was a part of me that hoped I could also get through this gym on the first try, I still felt like victory was not too far away, but it was going to have to wait for the next stream. The next stream it took me a few more tries, but eventually I did get the proper setup. Chimchar was able to dodge Medicham's Rock Slide and return a knockout of its own. And as I'm sure it shocks nobody to find out, I used a single Flame Wheel to one-shot Candace's Abomasnow and claim the 7th gym badge, meaning my team was now just one badge away from never having to worry about level caps ever again. But of course, now that the 7th gym is taken care of, it's time for the rest of the entire Galactic storyline. I did a brief stop in at Lake Acuity to learn that my rival got his ass beat by Commander Mars, and then trekked back to Veilstone to march through yet another building commandeered by Team Galactic. During this time, I actually did something I had been avoiding for the rest of the challenge, fighting every trainer I saw. I figured the battles atop Mount Coronet were going to be very difficult, so I felt like now was a good time to really focus on preparing my team for the final push through the story. Taking down the grunts was pretty easy and admittedly a little boring, as you can only fight so many Golbat and Glameow and still have fun, but with each battle I gained a little more valuable XP and plunged deeper into the heart of the Galactic building. After a while, I finally arrived at the penultimate stop in the Galactic building, the battle with Cyrus. I was a little nervous just knowing his team consists of pretty tough Pokemon, but I was actually pleasantly surprised to find out that his Sneasel hadn't evolved yet, meaning this battle was a lot easier than I was anticipating. And sure enough, with the combined power of my team and a startling number of setup moves, I was able to take down Cyrus easily on my first try. Hilariously, I had a much tougher time with the following battle against Commander Saturn. I don't know why, but somehow I always forget that this is a part of the Galactic story. And despite me putting hundreds of hours into these games, I feel like this battle always sneaks up on me. Saturn's team hit unexpectedly hard, and thanks to a few critical hits, a missed Leech Seed, and my severe misunderstanding of how Pokemon abilities work, I was knocked out, despite thinking for a moment I had actually won the battle, which made getting sent back to the Pokemon Center and having to work my way all the way back there even more embarrassing. Nobody say a word. Nobody say a word. You're fine. You're fine. Chimchar, you're chill. You're chill. No! It's going to count as a loss, isn't it? Neither did oh wait, they have Bronzor. The second time around, I was far better prepared and able to take down Commander Saturn with ease. And with that, it was time to head to the top of Mount Coronet for the real peak of the story. Getting up there was a bit of a haul, but with plenty of levels still between my team and the level 70 cap in place until I beat Volkner, I was able to pretty freely battle each and every Team Galactic grunt to give myself the best possible odds of winning my battles at Spear Pillar. And despite the fact that Cyrus was a bit of a pushover last time, I knew that things would not be nearly as easy the next time around. So after forging a path through the mountain of Galactic grunts, I arrived at the summit of Coronet, ready for the next huge challenge in this run. The top of Mount Coronet consists of 3 battles, and first up was a pair of Galactic grunts. Unsurprisingly, this battle is fairly easy, with Piplup Surf able to knock out just about everything while Turtwig kinda just stood there. After the 2 grunts are dealt with, next up is our final meeting with the Galactic Commanders, and this battle is much more difficult than all of our previous meetings with Team Galactic. Their fully evolved Perugly and Skuntank are able to tank a ton of hits, but luckily for us, our rival comes to our aid, providing a much needed boost to our team. And unlike every other previous NPC we've battled alongside, our rival actually has a full team of Pokemon, making them a much bigger asset to us in this battle. With our teams combined, I was able to take out the commanders for the last time. Or so I thought. Right after this battle, I noticed a huge problem. You are instantly put into a cutscene and then forced into the Cyrus battle before you can save. Fortunately for us, the rival heals our team before we get pushed into that Cyrus battle, but it didn't take away from the fact that I would have to beat the commanders every single time before I rematch Cyrus, meaning that resetting would take way longer.
Does that auto start? You troll, back the fuck up. Oh, no, I thought we could save. Oh, we're cooked. I can't even heal my Piplup, dude. Fuck.
But of course, I handedly won on the first try, and this was not an issue at all, right? Yeah, I didn't think so either. With Honchkro's propensity for critical hits and a Gyarados that brings back horrible memories of the 4th gym, I knew this was going to be a grind, but that problem was going to have to be solved in another stream. Coming back a couple days later, I was forced right back in the same position as the previous stream. Cyrus's team was still incredibly difficult to knock out, and specifically Honchkro had moves that constantly shut down my ability to get up in the same way that had worked for other major battles. But as I attempted this battle over and over again, I realized that Honchkro was actually a little too eager to use setup moves, meaning I could just easily knock it out with Chimchar before I took any damage, and from there I could exploit Gyarados' attack-only moveset the same way I had against Crasher Wave. With only physical attacking moves, Turtwig's Reflect and Piplup's Charm rendered Gyarados useless, giving me time to set up Double Team and make my Piplup borderline unhittable. From there, it was a slow grind to the end, but Piplup was able to dodge and weave through just enough moves to make it through Cyrus's Weevil and Crobat, meaning I had officially beat Team Galactic and was done with the main story. And as it showed, I was very done with this battle by the time I finally beat it.
An hour and 45 minutes later, we're out of here.
And even as I flipped off Cyrus, I was a little happy knowing I was once again able to scheme up a strategy that allowed my vastly weaker team to be victorious against a tougher opponent. Something I would have to do a lot more of if I wanted to make it all the way to become the Sinnoh champion. But before I got there, I had to deal with the god of time that was standing about 10 feet away from me during this entire monologue. I don't know how it got into my mind that you couldn't just run from this battle, so I went into this geared up and ready to knock Dialga out, however long that was going to take. But thank God I checked if I could run just in case.
Oh, never mind. Okay. I've lived for 60 years and I've never been thrilled like this. Dude, that battle sucked. I just ran.
Also, I have to quickly note, Professor Rowan's life has to be an absolute snooze fest if the greatest thing he's seen in the last 60 years is a kid running away from a Pokemon, albeit the god of time. But still, this dude's been in the game for 6 decades. Ranting aside, I was able to leave the Spear Pillar and all of Team Galactic behind, and now could focus on securing my 8th and final gym badge. More so than normal, the stroll through Route 222 felt like a bit of a victory lap. I struggled really hard with the Cyrus battle, and honestly, it was the first time in a while I had struggled like that in this challenge.
Yeah, we need this thing to miss, and it's just not missing either. Fuck me, man. God damn.
So I was feeling really accomplished coming back down to finish off this gym quest. I went back to my old ways of not fighting any extra trainers because I felt pretty confident that my team at this point could take on Volkner's team of electric types, if you can even call it that. So with that, I rolled into Sunyshore City, which I often don't mention might be one of my favorite cities in all of Pokemon, and went to work convincing Volkner his ass needed to come out of retirement just so I could be beat by 3 shiny starter Pokemon. And I must have expert negotiation skills because he totally bought that underwhelming pitch and got back to the gym pronto. So now it was me and my team on one last ride through a gym. Luckily for us, everyone in this gym seems just about as interested in electric types as Volkner, so we didn't really run into that many tough matchups. And to make things easier, every trainer doesn't have more than 2 Pokemon, so I was able to cruise through the gym. Well, aside from actually having to solve the gym puzzle itself, but we'll just fast forward through that part. Starting off my battle against Volkner, I set up Leech Seed, anticipating this battle would still be relatively difficult considering it is a gym battle after all. But right away, Turtwig was strong enough to just take on a few of Volkner's Pokemon by itself. No setup required. So with a few Giga Drains and some good old BDSP friendship,
Get scary. Oh my god, it's busted. It's busted. It's busted.
I was through half of Volkner's team. And while my chat thought this battle was instantly won in my favor, I had spent enough time stuck in gyms to know that I wasn't quite out of the woods just yet. And all it took was one Ice Fang from Luxray to reiterate that point.
I wouldn't count yourselves out yet. I think I'm an Ice Fang away from being dead, so if we can get a Leech Seed off, that would be very huge for me. Fuck.
And I don't know what it was, but I think my Piplup took Turtwig's knockout personally because it went on one of the craziest runs I've ever seen, getting 2 Quick Claw activations in a row, then a friendship miss, then another Quick Claw activation, and a friendship miss in the same turn after all of that. And I think my reaction here kind of says it all. All of that helped me set up 3 charms on Luxray, making it almost a non-factor and letting me weaken it enough to activate its Citrus Berry as well. But as all good things must come to an end, Piplup was knocked out after this, but not after what could be called one of the most valiant efforts of all time. So I brought out my final Pokemon and trusted Chimchar to take us the rest of the way home. I took advantage of the fact that Luxray was -6 attack and took time to set up a couple of Swords Dances to ensure that any moves that I hit would deliver a knockout. With Luxray down, it was mono-y-mono, Raichu versus Chimchar. In one last matchup for all the marbles and about 25,000 Twitch channel points. And how else could it end than a friendship dodge surf and a flame wheel to close us out? Doubters, I am so sorry. That was so dope. Oh my god, dude. Friendship is so busted. After one of the single most miraculous battles I have witnessed, I could claim my 8th gym badge and move on to the last pillar of this challenge, the Elite Four. Through Route 223 and Victory Road, there wasn't much to note, but finally, I ascended that last waterfall and watched the nice cutscene with beautiful music to remind me just how far I had come on this journey. But I would very shortly be reminded of how much further I had to go. For now, though, I chose to savor that moment and take care of everything else in the next stream. Coming back the next day, I was ready to start my final climb through the Elite Four and take my shot at becoming the champion. At this point though, you might think that I'm forgetting something, and you'd totally be right. There's one other battle I had to take on before I can actually start the Elite Four. Of course, just like every other time in this story, our rival bursts in at the worst possible moment to challenge us to one last battle to decide who should be the one to take on the Elite Four. And looking at the fact that he has a full team of well-rounded Pokemon compared to the fact that I managed to get there beating him, every gym leader, and saving the world with just 3 shiny Pokemon, I thought that would be enough that there shouldn't even be a question as to who is more deserving of the opportunity to fight the Elite Four. But it's no matter, as our rival insists we fight anyways, and I will admit I was a little quick to forget how much I struggled with the last rival battle in Canalave City, and I felt a little too good going into this one. Starting out this battle, I had my Piplup ready to get things underway. Against Staraptor, Piplup was able to take it out in just a couple of hits and only took a little bit of damage, and from there I just swapped around as different things came up. I moved into Chimchar for Roserade, and after a Swords Dance, I was able to one-shot it with Flame Wheel. I showed that same hospitality to Heracross, who used its first turn to set up a Swords Dance of its own, and just like that, half of my rival's team was already gone. He then went into Floatzel, and while I had flashbacks to Crasher Wake's gym, I hate Ice Fang so much, man. I'm gonna have nightmares about that move. I'm going to have genuine nightmares about the move. Turtwig locked in and took down Floatzel with Giga Drain. Now it was down to just 2 Pokemon. But this is where my rival stepped it up and brought out his starter as well. The only problem was his was fully evolved, which came with all the benefits of that. It was faster, hit harder, and also gained a stab boost on its fighting type. And it showed as it had the upper hand and managed to take out my entire team. So seeing that just being higher level wasn't going to cut it, I knew it was going to take some of my old tricks to pull out a win in this battle. I took some time to backtrack and fight some of the previous route trainers and some of the folks I missed in the Victory Road, hoping that a few more levels and a useful bunch of stat boosting moves would be enough to tip the scales. I managed to string together a lot of decent runs, but they would all fall flat eventually. You and your 90 accuracy rock slide, so help me God. Oh, come on! You can't be for real right now! That is crazy! At some point, my stat boosted Pokemon would still get knocked out, or I would run into a Pokemon where my only counter was weak and would get one shot after swapping into battle. At this point, I had now spent over 2 straight hours fighting Barry, and my frustration was really starting to show. Is this the same battle as the start? I don't want to hear it, but yes, Pax, it is the same battle from the start of stream. It's the same exact battle. I have not made any progress in the last 3 hours.
Yeah, no, burn. Yeah, why the hell not? Why the hell not?
But finally, with Kendrick Lamar playing in the background to hype up my team, it turned out that all I needed was one good crash out to motivate my team and get this battle done. I got Turtwig out early to set up a leech seed and reflect before passing it off to Piplup to start setting up. I got a couple of double teams off before Barry had had enough and switched into Roserade extra early. Here, I was able to luck my way into back-to-back dodges and return 2 ice beams to knock out Roserade. Another ice beam sent Staraptor packing as well, and it was on to facing Infernape. This time around, my evasiveness clutched up, letting Piplup dodge a vital close combat and one-shot Infernape with Surf.
Come on! Come on! This is the run we need. This is the run we need.
With Snorlax out, I used the last of Piplup's health to set up 3 charms, dropping Snorlax's attack to -6, giving the rest of my team time to set up for the second half of Barry's team. With another Leech Seed and Reflect from Turtwig, it was now time to see if Chimchar could get us the rest of the way home. I managed to get off 1 Swords Dance and a double team before we ran into a bit of a problem. Yawn. Snorlax put my Chimchar to sleep, and while Leech Seed was keeping us healed in the event that Snorlax did manage to hit a move, it was also draining all of its HP, meaning I was going to have to face Heracross a little sooner than I really would have liked to. And as the turns ticked by and Chimchar still wasn't waking up, I was worried that I had thrown away an otherwise great run.
Wake up, Chimchar, wake up! It's time to get up! I'm gonna be late for school!
I was quick to forget, though, that Chimchar still has a bit of flair for the dramatic, waking up the last possible turn before entering the fight with Heracross, which had caused me so much trouble previously. But just +3 evasiveness proved to be enough to dodge the 1 critical rock slide and knock out Heracross in the same turn, leaving just Floatzel between me and my chance at the Elite Four. While this may not seem scary, Floatzel had actually swept my team in several previous attempts and also had Ice Fang, which since the 4th gym has forever traumatized me, and it's in my head now as one of the strongest moves of all time. I say all of that to note that I was in no way confident that this battle was over yet, but with just Floatzel left, all Chimchar had to do was live a couple of hits. I opted for a power-up punch, which did about half on the first turn, and as Byron only did about 50 HP, all I needed was to avoid a critical hit, and I was finally free. And sure enough, in my time of need, Chimchar came through for me.
Oh my god, it's done, chat. Get this shit out of here. Oh my god, let's go! Let's go! Just in time. Oh my god.
After 2.5 straight hours of battling Barry, I had finally beat him for the last time, meaning I was now free to begin my climb through the ranks of the Elite Four. Though I wanted nothing more than to dive right into the next part of this challenge to make some actual progress this stream, I took a moment to run around the map and collect any last items that might help me on my way. I went back to the Veilstone department store to grab a few more TMs, including duplicates of a few like Double Team and Swords Dance, just in case I needed to teach another move over it, but wanted it back at some point later in the Elite Four. I took stock of my elixirs and ethers as well, and it seemed that I had grabbed just enough of them through my playthrough that I should be set up as long as I didn't get stalled like crazy in any one battle. I also stocked up on potions and revives, and even though I couldn't use them once a battle had started, I was sure as hell going to need plenty of them in between. Lastly, I did one last lap to Pastoria City to check in with the move relearner to see if there were any old moves that I had passed on before that might actually be helpful now. And looking back, I felt pretty good about where my Pokemon were at, and I decided that I had everything I needed to take the plunge and start facing the final 5 trainers between myself and the greatest Hall of Fame entry of all time. Starting off with Aaron, the bug-type trainer, it was safe to assume that Chimchar was going to be the star of the show. I got right into it immediately, starting with my double team setup on turn 1, but right away we hit a problem. Toxic. With Chimchar now badly poisoned, I had to abbreviate a lot of my setup knowing that unless Chimchar miraculously got better on its own, its time in this battle was already limited. I took 2 more turns to get another double team and a Swords Dance set up, but with Chimchar losing increasingly large chunks of HP every turn, it was time to just deal as much damage as possible while I was still alive. Flameleo was quick to take out Dustox, but I instantly got a flashback to our battle with Barry, facing up against a Heracross. The 2 double teams proved to be huge for us as Chimchar avoided an earthquake and knocked out Heracross in a single hit as well. At this point though, Chimchar's health ticked down to 1 HP, meaning it was my last shot to deal some big fire damage. And that's assuming I would even outspeed the next Pokemon, Beautifly. When Chimchar didn't outspeed, I joked that it would tank the hit and stay on 1 HP for another turn. And it did. Oh my god, he did! Oh, let's go! Oh my god, he's so different. Well, Chimchar did finally faint at the end of the turn. With only 2 of Aaron's Pokemon remaining, I felt like it was worth seeing if I could make it through the rest of the battle with just Piplup and Turtwig. I sent Turtwig out for a quick setup of Reflect and Leech Seed, and Vespiquen decided to take a few turns for some setup of its own. Once I had Reflect and Leech Seed up, I swapped into Piplup to get the rest of the setup complete. I got Charm set up so each of Vespiquen's attacks were doing almost nothing until, yeah, the one thing that could throw a wrench in this plan. A critical hit, which bypasses all the stat changes I had made to Piplup. But once I started setting up Double Team, I was starting to feel pretty good again. With Piplup at +6 evasiveness and Vespiquen at -6 attack, even if my moves didn't hit that hard, I knew that it would at least make it to Drapion and have a shot at winning this battle. A second Ice Beam and a critical hit of my own proved to be enough to take down Vespiquen, leaving one very scary Scorpion between me and winning this battle. Because I've talked so much about my past experiences playing Diamond and Pearl at the beginning of this video, I think it's a great time to mention why Drapion makes me nervous in this battle to this day. In my first ever playthrough of Pokemon Pearl, I could not, for the life of me, make it past Drapion when I got to the Elite Four. No matter how good the rest of my team was, I could never seem to figure out a way past this Pokemon. It got so bad and I was stuck at this battle for so long that I ended up abandoning one of my original team members just to bring in a Graveler with Explosion for the sole purpose of knocking out Drapion. And sure enough, that proved to be a good enough trick, and I finally made it past Drapion on my way to my first ever Elite Four victory in Sinnoh, which means I forever have Graveler hilariously posed in the corner of that very first Hall of Fame entry, all because I just needed it to blow up Drapion. I add all of that context to say that every time I face this Pokemon, I still remember how tough it was for me to knock it out all those years ago. But coming back to modern day, where I've figured out how to use setup moves, I was feeling slightly better about this matchup, knowing there was a 60% chance that Drapion would miss every single move. And with a dodge move and a critical hit Surf on turn 1, I knew that Piplup had this one in the bag. I dodged one more move and a second Surf washed away Drapion, securing my victory and paving my way onto the next room. Following the nail-biting battle against Aaron, Bertha was a very welcome break in the action, and I don't really feel the need to cover it in nearly as much detail because I can sum it up all in one phrase: Giga Drain. I'm not going to act like there weren't some close calls and of course some OP friendship moments, but this battle was soloed by Turtwig, proving once and for all that even just picking a grass starter is enough to beat Bertha down the stretch. So with that covered, let's dive into the next battle. When I was looking ahead to the Elite Four for this challenge, I was really unsure how to read my chances of success against Flint. On one hand, half his team is made up of fire or ground types, so having Piplup was obviously going to provide a huge advantage. But it was his Driftblim and Lopunny that I was more concerned about. Even though I did have coverage moves for both of them, I was afraid that the lack of stab and the fact that my Pokemon were still unevolved and didn't have optimal stats might hold me back a bit here. Kicking off this battle, I instantly got a taste of my own medicine as Rapidash used Hypnosis to put my Piplup to sleep, giving me doubts about keeping the current win streak going. That said, Piplup is never punished. Quick Claw wake up? Never punished? Actually, we're still kind of punished there, but that said, it got hit with Hypnosis a few turns later and lost almost all of its HP before waking up at the last second and knocking out Rapidash. But now that Piplup was in Torrent range and dealing 30% more damage on its moves, I was feeling pretty good. I did, however, end up swapping it out for Turtwig when Flint sent out his Steelix so I could get my more traditional setup going. And I ended up swapping back into Piplup and got off 3 charms, bringing Steelix down to -6 attack. But I got a critical hit bypassing that and knocking Piplup out. All right, well, we're going to go with the Piplup strat then. We're going to go with the Chimchar strat. I think I misspoke there. My bad. And while it may not seem like much, this little guy was up for the challenge. With the sacrifices that Piplup and Turtwig made to give Chimchar a better future, it was able to live every hit and heal every turn against Steelix, letting it get all the way set up with +6 evasiveness and 3 swords dances for +6 attack as well. Looking back, this might have been a bit overkill, but with the rest of my team knocked out, I didn't want to take any chances, and Chimchar was ready to go. One shot on Steelix, knockout. One shot on Lopunny, knockout. One shot on Driftblim, knockout. This left only Infernate facing off against its long-lost shiny son. And Chimchar stuck it to him with back-to-back power-up punches while dodging 2 close combats, clutching the win for my team. In an all-time performance that featured 6 dodged moves across 8 turns, Chimchar made sure this team was moving on to fight Lucian. As much as I've played up the last 3 fights, Lucian was the first fight in the Elite Four that I was truly worried about. For every fight so far, I had a pretty substantial amount of stab moves to carry me through. But looking at Lucian's team, I had only Chimchar's Flame Wheel against Bronzong and Turtwig's Crunch, which wasn't even stab. But once I did a little digging around in my bag, I managed to find some other tools to help me out. I ended up getting rid of Turtwig's Crunch and teaching it Flash instead, hoping that I could use it to further improve my existing evasiveness setup by also blinding an opponent before using Double Team, making my team truly unhittable. I also realized that I had the TM for Shadow Claw, which I could teach to Chimchar. Though that wasn't stab, it was physical, meaning it would be boosted by Swords Dance, making me fairly confident that it would still hit super hard. With those changes made, I was ready for my shot at Lucian. But right away, things started to fall apart. I got light screen set up, but Lucian swapped out Mr. Mime for Girafarig, which has Sap Sipper, making my typical Leech Seed setup useless. It was clear looking back on this just how thrown off of my rhythm I would get when I was not able to set up in the same way that I had for every major battle since the 4th gym, and as a result, I lost this fight against Lucian pretty quickly. The nice thing was I had saved right before, and this time around, things went a whole lot smoother. I was ready for the swap to Girafarig, and Turtwig got to work setting up Flash. That paved the way for Chimchar to swap and get to work. 6 double teams and 3 swords dances later, Chimchar was in full sweeper mode. I'm not sure what the actual math is with 6 flashes and 6 double teams set up against a 100 accuracy move. That's to say that I was pretty sure my Chimchar was fine out there. It is worth noting that once I knocked out Girafarig, I was relying on only +6 evasiveness, but that's all I needed. Chimchar was surprisingly fast and only Mr. Mime outsped, but it missed and I was able to fully sweep Lucian's team. And just an hour after beating my rival, I had arrived at the last fight in the game. It was time for our greatest challenge yet, and the battle that I knew would truly test if any of this was even possible. It was time to fight Cynthia. Throughout this entire challenge and every hardship I faced, I knew that Cynthia was the true test for this team. Her team is a combination of everything that made this challenge difficult. A diverse team of high-level, statistically good Pokemon with powerful, competitive movesets. I spent a solid 10 minutes looking through Cynthia's team ahead of time and trying to devise a strategy, but after a while, I figured what I really needed was first-hand experience to inform my decision-making going forward. So with my team healed up one last time, I jumped into this battle. Things started off pretty well with my strategy of setting up against Spiritomb going all right. It wasn't swapping out, and I was able to get up a Light Screen, Leech Seed, and Flash before swapping into Chimchar for Phase 2. I set up 6 double teams in Swords Dance, and right as I was ready to start attacking Cynthia's team, Spiritomb wiped out Chimchar with the Shadow Ball. And right then and there, the look on my face should tell you all you need to know about how this battle went for me. The next time around, I made it past Spiritomb, but was absolutely stonewalled by Cynthia's Gastrodon, which was only taking about half of its HP per hit, despite Chimchar being at +6 attack. I was super lucky and managed to dodge every attack long enough to finally chip away at its health and knock it out, and my reward for doing so was an even bigger tank. Milotic. I have had countless battles against Cynthia ruined by this one Pokemon, even when I bring my best electric or grass types, so I was extra worried about facing it with just a Chimchar. With naturally high defense stats and a combination of the Flame Orb, which burns Milotic after turn 1, and the ability Marvel Scale, which boosts defensive stats by 50% when the Pokemon has a status effect, this thing is built to handle whatever you throw at it. And to make things even better, they gave it Recover as well. I say all that to paint a picture of just how tough this Pokemon is to knock out. And despite it all, I managed to knock it out. It's on 1 HP, man. It's on 1 HP. Or so I thought until it lived on 1 HP. Even with +6 evasiveness setup, my Milotic was bound to get in a couple hits here and there because it just took so long to knock out. I don't actually know how, but Chimchar was determined to make it out of this battle, and after 4 straight minutes of fighting my Milotic, it was finally knocked out. I breezed past the Roserade before my chat delivered some of the most devastating news that I could possibly hear. Aura Blast can't miss? That was not a realization I had. Are you kidding me? Aura Sphere never misses. Oh, no, dude. I was thinking, oh, well, Poison Point. If I get poisoned, I only have 1 HP. And then I thought, oh, Garchomp has rough skin. If I take any damage, I'm dead. If I attack it at all, I'm dead. Oh, but also, on top of everything, Aura Sphere can't miss? And you waited until now to tell me? And soon enough, my luck ran out as Lucario one-shot my team. And just like that, it was back to the drawing board. And I want to point out that even though that run made it pretty far, I had a ton of other runs right after this that would fail before I even knocked out Spiritomb, proving just how much luck I would need to win this battle. After an hour of stalled progress, I came up with a few more ideas for this battle, those being the addition of Substitute to Chimchar's moveset over Shadow Claw and teaching Workup over Charm to Piplup. My thinking with Substitute was to counter Lucario. Seeing as how Lucario would always be guaranteed a hit with Aura Sphere, if I had Substitute set up when Lucario swapped in, I could live a hit and knock out Lucario with Flame Wheel. And with Piplup, almost all of Cynthia's team prioritized special type moves, meaning Charm wasn't nearly as helpful as before. And with these new moves, I actually had 2 runs make it all the way to Cynthia's Garchomp. The first time around, I got wiped out instantly, but the second time, it was looking promising. This is really good. This is really good. You're going to hit Aura Sphere. There goes the Substitute. We knock out with Flame Wheel. Now we're mono-y-mono. 1-on-1 against Garchomp. We still have our +6 evasiveness and our +6 attack. I feel like we have to go attack. We have to go all out here. Quick Claw. Flame Wheel. Doesn't do a lot. We need some misses. Fuck! Come on, man. Let me have this. Piplup, remember how we're best friends? You've always been my goat. You're right there on the shelf. Come on. One time. You gotta dodge one move. Fuck. For a second, I felt super down, seeing as how I had spent 2 straight hours in this battle and was still relying so heavily on luck. But someone in chat brought up a good point. The win was right there. And for someone who references that image of the 2 guys mining for diamonds probably a lot more than I should, I knew that with a little bit more time, this battle was bound to go my way. And I left the stream feeling pretty confident that the next day of this challenge would be the last. Kicking off the next stream, I got back to battling, but things were off to a rocky start. I forgot to swap some of my items a few times, and no matter what I tried, I just couldn't seem to get a run going. I tried out some different strategies like setting up Piplup against Milotic, but that wasn't working either. I was really afraid that this stream would just be a repeat of the last, but just as I was losing hope, I got the run that I had truly been waiting for. Funny enough, this attempt actually got off to a pretty bad start, only getting a Leech Seed and 3 flashes off before Turtwig got knocked out. But when I swapped into Piplup, Spiritomb started going for Sucker Punch, giving me time to set up Double Team and really lower Spiritomb's chances of hitting a move before it started attacking me again. I managed to get all the way up to +6 evasiveness and then set up 6 workouts to get up to +6 attack and special attack as well. And somehow Piplup got out of this matchup against Spiritomb without taking a single hit. Fully set up and with Spiritomb knocked out, it was time for Piplup to crush everything in its path. Cynthia swapped into Roserade, but then immediately into Gastrodon, but I was able to take that out in 2 Ice Beams while attacking first each turn, meaning I still had full health and had already taken down one of Cynthia's tanks. Cynthia went back to Roserade, which I didn't outspeed, but luckily Piplup was able to dodge its energy ball and hit another Ice Beam for a knockout. And just like that, we were now halfway through and things were looking pretty good, though we still had Cynthia's 3 toughest Pokemon remaining. Next up was Lucario, and for how much time I spent grieving over the fact that it had Aura Sphere, I had somehow completely forgotten right up until this moment, and as you can tell by my reaction, I thought this run was over for sure.
Lucario's interesting. Oh, fuck me. Yeah, you just use Aura Sphere. I don't know why I'm all getting all antsy about this. You used Nasty Plot, you threw! You idiot! Oh my god, you threw!
And Piplup delivered a critical hit Surf just to prove its point, sweeping Lucario away and leaving just 2 Pokemon between itself and a lifelong legacy. To be fair, it was Cynthia's 2 scariest Pokemon, but it was just 2 Pokemon nonetheless. Right away though, Milotic was up to its usual tricks. No matter the stat boost or move that I used, this thing just took damage like a champ. And my only real hope of knocking it out was if it just ignored using Recover, which surprisingly was actually going pretty well. Milotic was out for a bit of vengeance and just kept using Scald, but even then it would live on almost no HP and then use a full restore the following turn just to start the process all over again. But no matter what Milotic threw at Piplup, it just refused to be hit, including dodging a mirror coat that I was sure would end this run. And 3 full restores later, Cynthia had burned out all of her heals, and Piplup was finally able to take Milotic down, leaving only Garchomp in its way. And from here, I want to let the rest of this just play out.
Okay. All right. Let's calm down, everybody. Let's calm the hell down. This is it. I realize I'm still wearing my heart rate monitor from when I was going to go running. So we're going to do a little heart rate check. I feel like it's not going to be that bad. Only 88 right now. Okay. We do have the Quick Claw, I believe. We do. Piplup, we need one more move. You've done everything we asked and more. I am asking for one more move. I'm asking for one more move. Let's go! Yes! Yes! And a crit! Let's go! Let's go, chat! Oh my god! With that! With that! I have beat Cynthia with only shiny starter Pokemon. Let's go.
In this battle, Piplup dodged a total of 14 moves and never once took damage from any of Cynthia's Pokemon. When I said this team could do it but just needed some luck, this was the best luck I could have asked for. My team of shiny starters had made it over every hurdle and conquered every challenge thrown at them across the entire Sinnoh region. And rightfully so, they were registered in the Hall of Fame, so their legacy could live on forever.
Greatest Hall of Fame entry of all time. Let's go. 71 on Piplup and 71 on Chimchar. Oh my god. Let's go, chat. What a team.
Well, that was all very touching. There is one quick thing I do need to note here. Well, I talked about how I used these 3 Pokemon throughout the entire playthrough. I kinda lied. Now, I don't want you to think that any of this challenge was a scam. I promise it's not. And everything that I included in this video did really happen. I didn't do any off-camera training or work to put this together. But there is one thing you might have noticed if you were paying a lot of attention to this video, and I decided I should address it here. You might have seen that in all of my footage for the battles against Crasher Wake, my Turtwig mysteriously goes from being level 30 at the beginning of the battle to being level 29. And let me explain myself. I did the classic parenting move of just replacing the beloved family pet with one that looks just like it. Before I had even started shiny hunting for this video, I had previously caught a shiny Turtwig in PLA, and though I hunted for it again and ended up using the second one that I found for this video, I made a slight error in the 4th gym. By using that Turtwig to beat the Shellos, it was a little too high level, meaning it would always go over level 30 every single time I fought the gym, leading to disobedience and eventually narrowly losing to Crasher Wake. And considering that my 2 other Pokemon at the time were also over-leveled and disobedient, I knew that this really wouldn't be possible. But there was no way to lower my Turtwig's level to avoid it over-leveling in the second half though, unless I swapped it out. So just for the Crasher Wake battle, I used a second Turtwig, which I brought into the battle 1 level earlier, which proved to make all the difference. Once I B-Wake, I swapped that Turtwig back out, which I'll show now to prove that I used the original Turtwig for 99% of the challenge.
Chat, close your eyes for like 2 seconds. Close your eyes. Don't even worry about anything. And you're good. Okay, open them again and we're good. All right.
But I didn't want to get called out for this in the comments and have people think that I cheated through what was an otherwise very difficult challenge run. But I thought it would be a better reveal if I let you all know at the end of the video and left it in as a little Easter egg for those who might have noticed partway through. So with that off my chest, let me wrap this up because this has been a long one. I know that I've said this at the end of a lot of my videos, but this challenge was genuinely one of my favorite things that I've done in all of my time playing Pokemon. It combined so many things that I love about this franchise. Shiny hunting, the bond that you have with your starter Pokemon, and just my overall nostalgia for the Sinnoh region. I almost never plan ahead before I take on these wild challenges, so seeing that everything actually worked out was a really cool feeling. This playthrough also challenged me to play Pokemon in a way unlike I've ever played it before. With Pokemon that were so much weaker than my opponents for a vast majority of the game, I really had to think about every battle and use everything I had at my disposal in terms of moves and items. Did this lead to me just using Leech Seed and Double Team in like every battle? Yes. But as someone who almost always has 4 attacking moves on every Pokemon at all times, this forced me to play the game so differently to how I've played this game in the past, and I found that really exciting. Next up, as I write this, I am very certain that this will be my longest video I have ever made by a long shot. So if you've made it this far, I want to say thank you so very much. And I truly hope you have enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. It's taken a long time to make, but I am so happy with how everything has turned out and that I can share this amazing story with everyone. I know it's a bit generic, but liking this video and sharing it with a friend, subscribing to the channel, all of that does a ton, and I would truly appreciate it as it will help me make more videos like this down the road, which I want to keep doing. If you want to see how these challenges play out as they happen, feel free to also check out my Twitch channel at I'm James with a 5 in place of the S in James, as I am live with tons of Pokemon and variety content over there several times a week. And finally, I want to say thank you all again for watching this video. I'm very sorry that it took so long for me to get this video out, but I truly hope that this was worth the wait. Thank you all again so very much for watching. I truly do appreciate it. And I'll see you guys all again soon in the next one.